Hi, welcome to another Witchdoctors how-to. Today we're going to show you how to put a battery into a Victory Vision. This is one of the harder videos we're going to do. The work's actually pretty easy, but it's really hard to see down in there, so we have some lights and that to try to show you how to do this. But we have our battery, we got it all charged up, and we're going to go over to the bike and show you how to install this. The first thing you got to do is you got a couple bolts up under the foot peg extension up here, the front tip over. This plastic shield under here has to come off. Now you'll see on this bike we have the front fender off. It's because we're doing some other stuff on this bike. But also, if that fender was on, it's really hard to show you in the video how to do this because some of these bolts are kind of hidden. So you have two bolts up under here. You have a bolt underneath the battery on the plastic shield. And you also have two bolts on the other side. Now they're 6mm Allen heads. So you just want to take those bolts out. And again, doing it this way, some guys may say you don't have to do all this, and that's partially true. But to show you in the video, it's easier to take some of this stuff out of the way. And the other thing is, it'll get to show you, if you want to take some of these panels off and clean them or paint, any of this stuff, it'll show you how to do that as well. So you're kind of getting a couple videos in one. And then you have one more underneath here. And that'll get this panel loose. You can see that, how that's coming down. So we'll go over on the other side and we'll get the other ones loose. Okay, so that'll pull that lower panel out. Thing comes right out, so you can set that aside. Now, one of the hard spots to see is up on this black panel you have here. There's bolts that are kind of inside, back behind here that are hard to see. I'll try to show you. And if you have your front fender on, it kind of hides them even more. But if you look up here, there's one up here, okay? I'll try to get the light. If you look back in here, there's one. And then you just follow that down and you'll see another one down lower, right in here. So you got a few in there that you got to get. So they're, like I say, not hard to get, they're just hard to show you. They're 10mm. And they should come right out. Just break them loose. They're just a little bolt. And if you get to the end and the piece is still not coming off, don't pry on it or anything. You missed the bolt somewhere. And you may have to turn, your front wheel. A lot of times when you're working on stuff, you forget you can move that stuff. there's a bolt underneath the back. It's another 6mm Allen. It's underneath the back where we took that other plastic shield bolt. There's another bolt under there. And then you do the same thing on the other side. You can see how that's starting to come loose now. And that'll gain you some access into the battery. So let me get this wheel moved and we'll come right back and you can see a little bit better. Okay, so I got this wheel a little moved. So now you can just kind of jiggle these out of here. And you can see now all the bolts that you have to get to. There's quite a few. And these ones here were the ones that were, you know, when it's in there, they're hidden in there. And they're really hard to see. And these are the ones on the very bottom here. So you can take that and set that aside and get that one and set that one aside. Now, get this wheel turned a little bit. Get my light here so you can see. Now you can see right into the battery. Okay? Now you can see why I took that stuff out. Plus it does make this job a little bit easier. So all you have is you have your negative cable and your positive cable. Okay, the positive usually has this little boot over top of the bolt, so you want to just kind of pull that little rubber boot, just push it back. This bolt right here in the top that holds the front bracket on, you have to take that bolt out. This bracket will flip down and then you can get to the battery. So it's just a 10mm. Okay, you see how that just kind of flips down? Now, the one thing you want to be careful of is positive and negative. People get all confused on which way you have to hook it up and how do you do it. The negative, if you touch the negative on anything, if you're going with your wrench and you slip and you hit metal and you're on the negative, you're okay. It won't spark or anything. If you're on the positive and you touch anything, that's when you can zap out, get sparks in that. That's where you have to be real careful. When you take the positive bolt off, be real careful that you don't hit anything metal, okay? So you just want to loosen that up. And I should have said, I guess, you want to take these off before you take your mount off because your mount actually holds the battery. So it's a little bit easier, but just take that nut off. Now, you can take that cable off, and that cable can touch whatever it wants now. You're okay, since it's disconnected from the battery. It can touch, and you don't have any problems. And take the negative one off, and now your battery will come right out, just like that. Simple as that. Okay? So like I said, if we would have left this bracket, you can see it just kind of hooks on there. When you fold it up, this part is actually the bottom. So when it's up there like that, it's actually holding the battery. So I probably should have done it that way. It'd be a little bit easier for you guys. So that's how you take the battery out. Now what you want to look at is you want to make sure these ends here are clean. If you have any corrosion on them, anything like that, you want to take a wire brush, soft wire brush, and scrub that up. both sides, the positive and the negative. Make sure they're clean. You can take a little bit of sandpaper and get a nice clean surface so that when it goes back on the battery, you have good contacts. And you won't have any problems down the road. So I'll get the battery and we'll show you how to put it in. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to take the battery and put it in the battery tray. Now the one thing you'll see, you got kind of this like little bit of a sort of a rubbery pad here. Make sure that stuff's clean. You don't have any junk in there. You know, if it's maybe corroded from the battery acid or something, if you had a battery that leaked, now would be a good time to paint it or powder coat it. But all you're going to do is just set your battery in there. Push it in so it's in all the way. The one thing you got was when you bought your battery, you got these little nuts and bolts here. Make sure you leave those screws in there, because if you take them out and you're tipping your battery around, what can happen, you have that nut in there, that nut can fall right out, and it's real small. So if you're tipping stuff around and that nut falls out and you don't realize it, or it falls down in here, you have to take everything back apart just to do that. So just put your bolt in there, just a couple, finger turns, just to get it so it holds it from falling out. That'll save you trouble down the road. Now on the mount, you have these two tabs right here, okay? Those two tabs are going to go right in these two slots. So all you do, you just take that, line them up, push the battery in. Now you want to make sure your positive cable, kind of keep that out of the way. Don't let that bump the battery. But put your bolt in. Just snug your bolt up. Now your battery's held in there. That's why I said I should have done it that way when I took it apart, because now it's not by the cables. Okay, so what you're going to want to do now is take your bolt out. Now, the one thing I recommend, I have this stuff, this is an old can of stuff I've had for 20 years in the shop. It's called Battery Corrosion Preventative. Okay, you just want to take a little bit of that and rub that on the terminal and on your cable. That helps keep a better connection, and it also keeps corrosion from coming on. The other thing you can use is dielectric grease. But if you go to like an auto parts store, they have those little ketchup packs, and they have that battery protection stuff. So you can buy just a little ketchup pack and smear that on there. Then you're just going to put your cable back on. You may have to bend it around a little bit, in case it got bent or pulled in a different direction. Now, the one thing I forgot to show you here is a lot of you guys have battery tender wires. Now's when you're going to want to put that on, so I kind of forgot that. But you have the positive and the negative. If you don't know which side's positive and negative, the side that has the fuse in it, that's the positive side. Okay, so you can't really mix them up. But the side that has this fuse holder, and if you didn't ever know, you pull this little cap off, and there's a fuse in there. So if you ever have a problem with your battery tender, check that fuse. It's just a watertight connector. So you want to put that on now. And again, you can see why, like I said, I took those shields off. A lot of guys say, oh, you don't have to. Man, it just makes it so much easier if they're out of the way. And you just want to kind of twist that wire, your tender wire, just kind of twist it so the wire's going towards the center there, so it's not hanging out. That way it won't get caught on anything. Tighten your battery cable up. Don't go overboard on it. It's just like a little aluminum bolt nut. It's real weak. Just snug it up just enough. And the positive is just the same you do exactly the same thing on the positive side. Put a little smear of the protectant on there. Put your wire for your tender. And again, you don't get shocked or anything when you're doing this. If you were to accidentally bump this on the metal, it'll throw a spark, but it won't shock you. It just makes you jump because you get scared. But when you put the cable on the battery, you'll get a little bit of a spark. That's normal. Tighten that cable up, and then if you can see here this rubber boot, make sure you pull that rubber boot. Try to get my light so you can see. And they could be tough sometimes to move, but just kind of jiggle them and get it, if you can see in there, get that boot right here so that it covers up the positive. That keeps stuff from anything touching and arcing out, shorting out. So that's all there is to replacing the battery. Now at this point, you'd want to turn your key on, make sure everything works, make sure all your connections are good. You should have charged it up before we got to this stage, so the battery should have a full charge on it. Next thing you would do would just put your panels back in, make sure everything's tight there, put your lower shield on, the very last step, that plastic shield, and you'd be all set. So Vision's one of the harder bikes to change a battery on, just because there's so much stuff to get to it, so that's why I thought I'd show you this video on this bike. Vegas, Jackpot, Hammer, they're all really easy. Cross Country's pretty easy. It's the same, Cross Country has a battery in the same spot. You just have to take part of your spoiler off so you can get down into it. You have to take that grill off and the two side panels so you can get down into it, but it's the same way. Jackpots, Hammers, Vegas's, Kingpins, they all have the battery under the left side cover of the bike, kind of in the back above the swing arm. So that's all there is to change a battery on a video. Thanks for watching.